Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to the show on another great episode of Sisters Hour. I'd like to welcome all our old viewers who've been tuning in every week. Thank you so much for your wonderful support. And thank you for the new people who are joining in today. We welcome you and we would love to know, where are you tuning in from? Please comment down below. For all of those who are joining in today and who are new, we are part of the Sofa Education Foundation. It is the first Malay community-based charity, and we have been running programs online since the pandemic has started. And for those of you who are interested more, please do visit our Facebook page and look at some of our programs. Now, to get us started into our show today, it's a continuation of our theme, which is motherhood, what we don't talk about. So, Alhamdulillah, we've started this February series on discussing some of these issues, and we had the first conversation with Sister Shakira talking to us about the whole process of, conceiving, pregnancy, and giving birth. And we continued on this conversation with Sister Roslina last week about postnatal depression. And if you would like to watch any of those recorded videos, it is again stored in the video section of our Facebook page. Alhamdulillah, today we are going to open up another discussion, raising children with autism. And I'm really happy that we've got a lovely sister coming on, Kauthar Marimo, who is a mother of 5, and 2 of her children have autism. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Sister Kauthar. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Kauthar. How are you?
Alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, I'm okay, thank you.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for joining in Sisters Hour today. We're really happy that you are able to bring this topic with us, because I think it's a much needed talk. A lot of people still don't understand, including myself, what autism is all about, because I think we just think it's something to do with child development, but we don't understand when we see a child or an adult who is autistic, we don't know how how they're thinking, the way they express themselves. And I think it's a really nice conversation to have, especially with you coming on and explaining it to us a little bit more. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. We said that you are a mother of 5, and that obviously 2 of your children are autistic, but there seems to be different types of autism. Could you explain to us what those different types are?
Yeah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah. My name is Kauthar Marimo. I'm a mother of 5, alhamdulillah. And yes, my youngest 2 boys are on an autistic spectrum disorder. So autism is a wide kind of subject medically. It's, I think, between 4 and 5 different types of autism. And that's kind of more of the medical terms of autism. But for my boys alone, are, my 5-year-old is verbal and my 4-year-old is nonverbal. And every child is unique anyway. But obviously, as an autistic child, they're also very much unique. So they've got similar traits, but they're all very, very individual. And subhanAllah, my 2 boys are completely different. So yes, they're both autistic, but they're just completely different children, subhanAllah. And that's how I kind of take, each one of their autism. And that's how I deal with it, that they're unique, they're different, and they have different needs. And subhanAllah, so my eldest, who is 5, Yusuf, he's very much verbal and expresses himself in the best way possible, lots of energy, and it keeps me on my feet. And then Yunus, mashallah, Allahumma barik, although he's non-verbal, again, he's very different. He's very calm. He's very weary of his surroundings, but at the same time, not aware of where he is, but just in his own kind of special world, subhanAllah. So autism, like I said, medically is there's such a massive kind of, broad of autism, but every single child is individual, regardless, and unique. And I look at Yusuf and I feel like the way I deal with him and his needs are just completely different than how I have to deal with Yunus. He's got lots of energy and he keeps, it's just from one thing to another to another to another. And then Yunus can stay in one place for hours, or he could play with the same activity repetitively. And subhanAllah, so yeah, I mean, that's the difference in my boys. But again, like I said, autism is such a massive, kind of subject. But although every single child who is on the autistic spectrum disorder, they are very, very different. And so you have to deal with them differently.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for explaining that to us. And you know what? Before I met you and I spoke to you about this, I never knew that there was a non-verbal autism disorder. And it's just me being not knowing, but it's good to know. And I think that next time if I see a child who is not responsive, it's not as if I would think, maybe there's something wrong, he's got a speech impediment or anything like that, but there is something else. But it's always good to know of all of these things that's happening right now. For a lot of people, they're really confused with how autism occurs in a child, and they usually want to know how it happened. So when you found out, what did the medical professionals inform you?
Well, subhanAllah, there's no actual reason for autism. There's no one reason for why autism it happens or happens to a certain child. There's no, but it is their brains are different than neurotypical children. So they're, like I said, it's such a broad kind of medical subject when you look at it from a medical perspective, but then their brains just work differently. And this is how I usually explain it, especially to children. So when I explain it to children, that they ask me questions of why doesn't Eunice speak, or why does Eunice hum and stuff like that. And I'm like, because his brain works differently. So there is, medically, they do say that there is kind of a deformity of the brain. And so it's an imbalance of the brain. So their brain works differently. And so that's how I look at it. When subhanAllah, they both got diagnosed so differently, but actually on the same week. So Yusuf, I kind of analyzed him and took loads of notes, and I kind of from birth onwards, and I saw, the different behaviors, and I took it to the doctors every single time I had something. I kind of would take it to the doctors, because his speech was delayed. So he was communicating. So he was pointing, he was holding my hand and bringing my hand to things and so forth and so forth. So that was, my main concern, that he was not verbal at the age of the right age, as they say. He wasn't meeting his milestones, but at the same time, he was just, he was communicating with me. So any other parent might not see that as a highlight of something. But I think because I just left working with children and I had so much kind of fresh, information of, dealing with observations and kind of, are they meeting their milestones and at stages and different ages. And so because I was kind of analyzing Yusuf, I took that to the doctors and I said, these are my concerns, and how do I go forward in this? And we had appointment after appointment after appointment. And subhanAllah, only till after he was 2.5 when he had a full assessment. So they have a speech and language therapist, a pediatrician, and they give him different activities to kind of, see how he's going to respond and so forth and so forth. But they didn't actually give him a diagnosis. So that was fine. I thought they said they would prefer until he was older. So I thought, okay, khair inshallah. We waited until he was 3, and then he got his diagnosis. And again, with another full assessment. Whereas Yunus, again, completely different, subhanAllah. He didn't respond to, to a lot of the things that I had concerns about, or he didn't meet his milestones at all. But again, from birth up until he was 1. And I had my concerns, but I didn't want to analyze him like I was doing to Yusuf. So I took a backseat a little bit, and I thought, I just want to enjoy him. Although I could see the clear signs, they were much more obvious for me with Yunus than they were with Yusuf. I think just with Yusuf, I was just on the ball, you know, I was just writing things down and taking notes and saying, right, he doesn't do this and he didn't do that. But then with Yunus, I kind of wanted to just relax and kind of, you know, just enjoy him as a baby and as a toddler. And, you know, but again, like I said, the signs were a lot more obvious in terms of him not responding to his name. You know, the extent, you know, the flapping and the constant kind of excited behavior, but no eye contact. And subhanAllah, that was for me, that was a highlight. But again, like I said, I just wanted to enjoy him. And so I turned a blind eye a lot with Yunus. And so I just didn't want to admit to myself that, okay, it could be autistic spectrum disorder, but, you know, it's okay. I'm going to just wait. And so I prolonged it and then I took it. Then with my concerns, I took them to the doctors and the doctors referred us to the health visitor. And then after the health visitor's appointment is when she saw a clear sign. I mean, it was very obvious if you know about autism. If you don't know about autism, again, you wouldn't really look at Yunus any different than any other toddler. And he got diagnosed earlier than Yusuf. So he got diagnosed when he was 2 and Yusuf got diagnosed when he was 3. But like I said, medically and for the professionals, it was more obvious because no eye contact. He was just the perfect baby. You know, he slept all night. He had great naps throughout the day and he was just quiet. You know, he was great to have, mashallah, Allahumma barak. He still is. But, you know, these things they weren't a highlight for me. I just wanted to enjoy him. Although, like I said, deep down, I had my doubts that, yeah, I think it's autism, but, you know, I just want to enjoy him and I want to take each day as it comes and so forth and so forth. And alhamdulillah, I did. And yeah, he got diagnosed when he was 3 and I responded to his diagnosis differently as well. So because I think I was in a little bit of denial of not, you know, because I highlighted everything that it could be other than autism, although I knew, if that makes sense. So, you know, we took him for a hearing test because I thought maybe he's got a hearing impairment. Maybe he's not responding to sound, but I knew he passed his hearing test at birth. But again, I was just kind of wanting to do everything else other than, you know, for someone to tell me that he's on the autistic spectrum disorder. And Yunus also got diagnosed with something called picker, which was something very new to me and even to his nursery. So this is something that when a child eats non-food objects. So subhanAllah, I just got used to him doing this, you know, again, from birth up until he was 2.
Sorry, can you give me an example? What do you mean a non-food object?
So he loves material. So it's more with Yunus, it's material. I mean, every child is different with the picker, but he likes sponge, foam.
So he puts it in his mouth.
And he will swallow it and he will happily eat it.
Subhanallah.
Yeah. So we got used to this as a family. We just would take things that we knew that he loved eating away. So sponges, we just wouldn't have any sponges around because we knew he will take chunks of it and he will eat it and swallow it. So his blanket, he would chew and take chunks of it. And this was a comfort in, and he still does it, but it has improved, alhamdulillah. It's improved massively because we're always at him. And now he's a little bit more aware. He's quite smart. So when he's eating something, he kind of knows, and I'll say, no, Yunus, and he throws it. So he knows he's not allowed. But obviously, I just got so used to him doing it. I didn't even know that there was a diagnosis of it, you know. And subhanAllah, when that came about with the same time of his autism, I was shocked. I was like, because they did bloods because they wanted to make sure that it wasn't something that he was lacking in his system. But subhanAllah, it was just that he enjoys eating non-food objects. And there are many, many different cases of this. But he just, like I said, it's sponges, it's material, and he still chews his clothes to the point where if he can take a chunk, he will swallow it. But then his diet is very limited. So it's frustrating as a parent. But because I understand his picker now, and I understand how I've got to deal with it, a lot of the things could be dangerous as well. So he will eat sand, he will eat soil, he'll eat chalk, he'll eat, you know, lead, pens, anything that he wants, he will eat it. So at the time that we was going through this, again, I got so used to him doing it that I just used to take it away and make sure that it's not around him, make sure he was safe. But like I said, again, this was a big kind of burden on us as a family, because I'd get, you know, really anxious and I'd shout at my kids, why did you leave that there? And why did you, you know, and subhanAllah. So I didn't we got so used to it that I didn't actually look at it that it's actually a diagnosis too. And he has, so I spoke to his OT and I'll speak to the doctors and I'll say, how do we deal with this? Because how do we go forward? Because this is something for me, it's very hard to deal with at home, because, or not even at home, even at nursery, it's almost can become something of a safety hazard. He could choke. There's so many, scary parts about this. And subhanAllah, when his OT explained that he's got a severe sensory delay, it made me understand it differently. And I feel like since then he's improved as well. So for example, if the shape of the pen is long, he won't understand it through the palms of his hands. So he would want to put it in his mouth, because the sensors in his mouth are a lot more stronger than his palms. And so he will understand the shape, and then he'll take it out, and like Lego bricks, he would eat it first and then match it, or a puzzle. So I just learned when I saw this and I saw him doing this in his OT session, subhanAllah, I was shocked. I was like, okay, I understand it now. So that's why he probably does it. So it's a sensory thing, as well as obviously he must enjoy eating certain, materials.
Subhanallah, I have to stop you there, because I'm just digesting all this information and it's a lot to take in, and I'm just so overwhelmed. And I suppose the viewers out there who are watching as well, like, we did not know. Like, honestly, I thought when you say your child just putting things in the mouth is like any other child sticking things in the mouth, but to have that child actually eat it. But then, I completely understand now that you said about the senses not working properly or delayed, and it's like, I'm guessing, if I was to put an example, when I look at documentaries about snakes, it's like they're blind, they can't see anything, but they use their hiss, their tongue to feel things in their bodies. So it's a bit like that, for me to understand, oh, this is how your child is learning something. And subhanallah, it's completely amazing, because it's something that we would never think of. Of course, we would think, oh, that's a strange child putting everything in his mouth. But like what you said, he's trying to learn what shape this is, if it's hard, if it's soft, and maybe he can't even taste it the way we do, or maybe he tastes it differently and he's enjoying it. But, the patience that you have as a mother as well is so amazing. And I love the fact that you said you've got these two boys. You've got Yunus and you've got Yusuf. Yusuf is the one that's hyperactive and, going out there and making all these noises, and just like a typical child. And you've got, Yunus is just so quiet. But at the same time, that is also a danger sign for any mother as well, because you're just like, wow, I'm having sleep with next to this child. This is amazing. Any mother would want that. But this is not normal. And I love the fact that you were truthful in the sense that you said, I don't want to know. I want to enjoy my child. And I think at times we completely forget that we rush into things, especially when it comes to education. We want them to say our names or respond to their names, or, point at things and say words, and at the same time walk and, eat by themselves. And we have all these high expectations, but we don't sit back and enjoy our child, because we're so used to having them meet certain targets. And if they don't meet those targets, like you said, you become anxious, and then, you get angry with yourself. And I do know a lot of us as parents, we get angry with ourselves because our child is not performing like everybody else. But, like what you said, every child is different and every child is unique, which then comes on to my next question. Usually when we don't have knowledge of something, our initial reaction is being worried or scared. And it's especially when it's to do with our child. And I'm just wondering, what was your initial reaction? Obviously with Yusuf first, because he was the first one that you had when you found out that he had the autism spectrum.
With Yusuf, subhanAllah, I was so prepared. So I already had diagnosed him. I had told the health visitor, like, I think he's on the autistic spectrum disorder. I've done so much research. I've worked with children very similar to him, and the way he lines up his cars, the way his obsession is with wheels. And that became dangerous because he would go to car wheels, he would run onto the road if he sees a motorbike, just because of his obsession with wheels and the way they moved. So even if a wheel was moving, he would just run onto the road and go and see this car. And it just, I was like, I need to know. I'm not going crazy. I need to know. So with Yusuf, I was so prepared, and I would take down notes every single time. So I would go back to my notes. So again, when I went to the health visitor and I said, you know, I think he's on the autistic spectrum disorder. This obsession and this fixation and, you know, no kind of awareness of safety and subhanallah, and also no pain. You know, he just had no pain. He would tumble and fall and, you know, hurt himself, and he would bleed, you know, so many times that he would bleed. And I'm like looking for where the blood is coming from, and he's playing. So it was like really frustrating that I needed to know and understand him. So for me, it was like for Yusuf, I had already diagnosed him, and it was more of a, you know, I just needed to know so I can help him. And so he gets the right intervention at the right time. And I wanted that, especially before he'd gone to school, because he was very hyper and he's got lots of energy. So for me, it was like, I don't want him to be with the stigma of the naughty child, you know, because he can't sit still. He's not a naughty child. He just has a different way of understanding it. If you find something that he enjoys, his focus is amazing. But then if it's not something that he enjoys, he may not sit still. You know, he is going to bounce up and down. Or if it's something he enjoys a lot, his hyperactivity is like, his adrenaline is just, you know, it's just really wild. So subhanAllah, with Yusuf, I needed to know, and I needed to get him the right help at the right time before he started school. And that was my main kind of, you know, issue with Yusuf. I just wanted that for my own kind of, I knew I'd seen so many children like Yusuf at school, and I'd worked with children like Yusuf. And for me, it was like, you know, that difficult child, the child that doesn't sit still, the child that's getting sent home because he's fell over, the child that just won't eat because he's too hyper, you know, he doesn't focus. He's constantly fidgeting, and this will just progress as he gets older and older and older. And that's what I didn't want for him, you know, because if he has the right help at the right time, then he will progress. Alhamdulillah, there's no wrong in, you know, in doing, you know, in getting a diagnosis at that time. There was no wrong about it. There was just, everything for me was looking forward, positive, and to get him the right help so he can, you know, progress in his education. And then with Yunus, subhanallah, it was like, again, like I said, I didn't do no, you know, writing down, taking notes. I didn't do any of that. I just enjoyed him. He was such a blessing, subhanallah, to have. And he was such a good boy. Although, like I said, deep down, I knew, but I turned a blind eye because I didn't want anybody to tell me this. Although, like I said, his signs were a lot more clearer and obvious. So he, as a baby, was just this perfect baby, and he had no eye contact. He never, you know, babbled like a normal baby. He was just happy. He was just a happy baby. That was it. And up until he was a toddler, he was just a happy toddler. He ate, he slept, and he woke up. You know, he would go wherever I'd taken him. He would have a comfort blanket that, for me, wasn't something that was a highlight. You know, he just had this comfort blanket, and he still has his comfort blanket, alhamdulillah. But, you know, that was a big, you know, thing that if we left without that comfort blanket, he won't sleep. So, you know, subhanAllah, these little things, like I said, I knew. But when I took, you know, the information I'd gathered with Yunus, they were much more clearer. But subhanAllah, I reacted differently. So when the health visitor first said, he's showing a lot of signs of autism, I was like, I just became emotional. I don't know what happened. And this is me being prepared, you know, and I knew, but it was just strange that I'm now being told, you know. And the same as, first of all, actually, it was the doctor who tested his ears again. So he didn't respond to the hearing test. You know, they have like noises in one corner. He didn't turn. They've got like a little rabbit, you know, just moving, and he didn't respond. So that doctor then said to me, he's showing more signs of autism, because the sound is going to his brain, but he's just not responsive to what's around him. So again, I just became emotional. And every time I'd be told, I just kept becoming really emotional. And I don't know why, subhanAllah, because with Yusuf, I wasn't. With Yusuf, I was just on the ball. I knew what was what. I said it before anything. And then with Yunus, I don't know what it was, but I think it was just you know, that that kind of confirmation from a professional, and that for me was like, okay, and then I had to take it in. And then they got diagnosed in the same week. So that was like a big, okay, wow, they've both got their diagnosis now in the same week, literally 2-3 days apart. And subhanAllah, I was now looking to go forward with this. So it was a really scary thing for me. Although, like I said, I was prepared. I'd worked with children like Yusuf and Yunus. I understood autism, which some parents don't. Some parents don't have no knowledge of autism. I remember speaking to parents from nursery that their children were very similar to Yunus and they had not a clue. And then they were asking, oh, Yunus hums like my son. And they've told me that he could be autistic and I don't know what that is. And I was like, educating these mums, and I felt like, subhanAllah, why was I not prepared for my own child? So it didn't matter how prepared I was with my knowledge, I just wasn't prepared to hear it, and that took me a little bit. I just needed to, I remember saying to the pediatrician that, okay, I just want to take a time out, because I'm now going to be bombarded with appointments left, right, and center. And nobody actually understands how difficult that could be. And for 2 children, so I had speech and language block lessons for speech and language with Yusuf, but then I couldn't take Yunus with me. And then Yunus was on a waiting list, and it was like, okay, what speech and language, And then again, I'd go back and I'd research, and then it was OT, occupational therapists. And then I was like, okay, what's that? And how's that going to help my child? And subhanAllah, I was bombarded with all these appointments. And I remember just saying, I just want to hold off a little bit. I just don't want any appointments, at least for a good couple of weeks. I just want to take this information in, and I just want to do my own kind of, reading and stuff like that, because then we get reports. So after these diagnoses, I get a very long report from the pediatrician. And to read that report was, for Yunus, was so emotional, because I had known this, but for somebody else from a professional to write this all down, pages and pages full about my child from a 3-hour appointment, was just daunting. It was just, I don't understand why I reacted that way, but it was just my way of reacting. Whereas subhanAllah, with Yusuf, I didn't. It was almost like a relief with Yusuf, like, okay, alhamdulillah, I've got, I'm glad I've got it. But whereas Yunus, it was just, I think all these emotions came to me because of him being non-verbal, not being able to express himself. But subhanAllah, as time's gone on, the progress he's made, it almost like he doesn't even need to be verbal, Alhamdulillah, it feels like it's a blessing in disguise. His voice is being saved for the day that he needs his voice, It's being preserved by Allah. And to understand that now has made me feel really content and accepting. But I think in the beginning, it was just this emotional roller coaster for me with Yunus. Subhanallah.
Oh, Kauthar, you explained that so well and so beautifully as well, because as a mother myself, we always have this constant fear of the well-being of our child. And again, it's that constant thinking, are they okay? Are they all right? How am I going to do this? And, it's like you saying the first child, you accepted it, you were relieved to know. But the second one, I find from your story is as if you just, because you knew you had one child, you didn't want it to go through the other child. But subhanAllah, it shows that Allah's put mercy in you and put patience and sabr. And at the same time, you were so willing to find knowledge yourself as well. And you were willing to calm yourself by taking a deep breath and by telling these professionals to just give you a moment. Because I think for us parents, it's the one thing that we need. First of all, as Muslims, we need time to pray. We need time to do so many things in the house with our family. But to absorb the information of your child, knowing that it's not going to be a normal childhood like everybody else. You've got to go through all these different things. You mentioned about OT, and I was like, oh my God, what is OT? Occupational therapy. Gosh, she has to go through these appointments so that her child can, speak normally. And I can imagine just the thought of going through all these appointments must be tiring. The waiting sessions, for the child to wonder, where are we going? What is this room? Who are these people? We don't know what this child is going through. And like you said, they don't react or they don't think the way we do. how are they responding to that? And as a mother, you're always, trying to protect them constantly. But subhanallah, thank you for showing us the true emotions of what a mother goes through. But for those mothers out there who are watching us, and I just want to say thank you so much. I can see lots and lots of comments of saying salams and everything. And do please add on your questions, which we will read at the end. For those mothers who are going through the similar process like you, Kauthar, and unlike you, who are still worried, who are still scared, what could you advise them from your experience?
Yeah, I think just take every single moment as it comes. Don't feel obliged to do it in a different way, or don't feel pressured. It, there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you have a feeling, if it's the very early stages where you have a feeling or thoughts, or you've been analyzing your child and you've kind of the knowledge that you know of autism, and you think that your child may have autism, then take it to a professional. If not, and if that's what you don't want to do, and if you're scared to do that, then take it of somebody of knowledge. So somebody that you trust, it could be nursery, it could be a friend, it could be family, I don't know, but take it to somebody. Don't leave it in your conscious of, I think it's this, I think it's that, but I've done nothing about it, because subhanAllah, sometimes that could be, the worst case scenario, that child will progress to go to school and then not get the right help, and they will miss out on so much. So I didn't know that speech and language is a massive part of autism, and actually it plays a big part of the child. So although it's just speech and language, but it's also play therapy. It's also understanding the world around them. I always say that I don't think it should be called speech and language, because speech and language is, I thought was speech and how they language. So it could be different ways of how they communicate, right? But it's not. It's got such a massive kind of world around the speech and language that I didn't understand how important that was. So subhanAllah, my best advice I can give is just take each day as it comes. But if you have your doubts, go and try and seek help of what direction to take first, because there's so many routes and directions. Is actually amazing, because from the beginning stage to where I'm at now, which I'm still in process, it's a long kind of road out there. But don't look at it as if it's going to take me forever and forever. Just take each day as it comes. And if subhanAllah, that you are in doubt of your child being autistic, then please speak to somebody that you feel confident or you feel at ease to speak to, because subhanAllah, you need to speak to somebody, because it's better that that your child gets the right help at the right time than the child miss so much and they can't actually get. There's after over 5, the speech and language is different. So over 5, I think speech and language is based in school environment. So then school kind of provides that. Whereas prior to 5, they can get speech and language sessions. So obviously, so there's a time scale of all of this. And again, I was unaware of this, but subhanAllah, I just don't, it's amazing, because I don't want parents to feel this pressure that they've got to hurry and they've got to do it like this and they've got to do it like that, because it is just a process. And that process will come by the will of Allah, that process will some way or another, however, whenever that child is meant to have that process, it will come. And inshallah, bi'idhnillah, every parent out there seeks help for their child at the right time.
Oh, mashallah, Kauthar. Thank you for reminding us of that. Because, at times of like this, sometimes we do lose faith. We get so emotional. We get so angry. We are so confused at the situation that Allah's provided us with. And you're right, it's the child's processing time, and not to rush with anything as well. But thank you for your kind words. In the poster, it says that you have actually completed a diploma in level 3 of cash for young people. And you mentioned before that you were, you have experience in the environment of young children, and you can tell about if someone has autism, or, the characteristics of autism. Now, has this course helped you better understand your current situation?
Yeah, definitely. I had, like I said with Yusuf, I had the knowledge. I just left my job and I just qualified. So I had so much, and I had worked with children as well with autism and Asperger's and all different disabilities. And subhanallah, that for me, it was such a that knowledge was, it made acceptance easier for me. But it didn't necessarily be because I had a level 3 in working with children and young people, because regardless of whether I had that or not, I would have still wanted to gain the same knowledge, simply because if my child is, whatever disability, I still want to understand my child. So yes, I had the knowledge, and alhamdulillah, I was blessed to work with children with autism. And so it made it easier for me to kind of, log on to write down and log Yusuf's kind of milestones, and is he meeting this and is he meeting that, simply because we had an EYFS to follow, which is the Early Years Foundation. And if your child does not meet that kind of age and stage, then you raise that concern, or you do something about it, or you help and support that child at the right time and age. And subhanAllah, because we had that, I kind of took that forward with Yusuf. But like I said again, I was blessed to have that. Not every parent is educated in that department or has even worked with children with autism. So every parent kind of takes autism knowledge differently, but they, the internet, alhamdulillah, you can gain so much knowledge of autism in itself. So it didn't, yes, it helped me. But when it came to my child, it was still different, because now it's my child. So yes, I was prepared with Yusuf and I was dealing with him like he was another child at nursery. But then when it came to Yunus, I became emotional. I became, the mummy, the worry. And I still do. I still look at Yunus and I become a little bit protective, and I'm his voice. Yeah, he doesn't have a voice, but I'm his voice. And subhanAllah. So yeah, regardless of my education, I'm still a mother of 2 autistic children. So it's different when they're my children now, if that makes sense.
No, completely, it does. And I think just from that, and we as parents, we continue to, learn about our children. Even, for me, I'm still Googling up things, how to help a 5-year-old write properly and things like that. And I think as parents, we just continue to educate ourselves. Now I just want to go to another part. So usually as husband and wife, if we find out something about our child, and especially for you and your husband, when you found out about Eunice and Yusuf, you acknowledge it, you accept it, and then you understand what conditions your child is in. It kind of makes, your life easier. But then we have to pass this understanding to our family members, our extended family members, our close family and friends. And I find that's difficulty, trying to get them to understand. Can I ask, what hurdles did you come across and how did you deal with them?
Yeah, this for me was a little bit difficult. I mean, we're still faced with difficulties, especially culturally. So a lot of cultures have no knowledge and no understanding of autism. And I remember going somewhere, and a member of the family, an older member, and it was a cultural thing, and said to me, don't tell them what's wrong with your children. I was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with my children. And I remember saying, I took it in a little bit and I stayed quiet, and I said, okay, shall I say something? Then I said, yeah, I'm going to say something. There's no wrong, there's nothing wrong with them. And if somebody asks, I will give them the knowledge, because it's important for them to understand. It's important for anybody to understand Yusuf and Yunus, because that's who they are. They're not the 2 autistic boys. They are Yusuf and they are Yunus. So they both have individual needs. And if I'm going to, especially if they're extended family, they need to understand. And so I think I'm quite, open that way. And subhanAllah, there are a lot of cultural differences in how each culture deals with this kind of stuff. And I find it's a little bit hush, hush, don't say nothing. It's, let's not let anybody know that he's just humming and he looks like he's just running up and down, or he's constantly crying, and nobody understands why. Well, it's because he's in a different environment. It's because he's smelling a different place and it's not home. It's because he'd maybe not have his comfort blanket. It's because the sound he's hearing is not the same as the sound he hears on a regular basis. And I want my family to understand that. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed because my immediate friends and family understood Yusuf and Yunus amazing. You know, both my sisters work with children at schools, and both my sisters understand, and same with my mum. My siblings, amazing, have worked so amazing with Yusuf and Yunus as well, and they know them so well. So they that has helped. So alhamdulillah, I've come from a kind of world where there's lots of love and lots of understanding of Yusuf and Yunus, but I am still faced with kind of different hurdles of, you know, being spoken about in their language, and so I don't understand, or, you know, just little things, or got traveling for the first time with Yusuf and Yunus, and Yunus is quite sensitive to sounds, and so is Yusuf. And subhanAllah, I put headphones on him, but he doesn't like them. And I tried to distract him, and we got stared at, and, you know, he screamed, and it was just, you know, I felt like I'm not going to let that get to me. You know, this is always going to happen. And if I let that get to me, then I could, you know, pass this on to Yusuf and Yunus not feeling so confident in doing anything or going anywhere. And so I didn't want that. And then you get culturally, you know, uncles and aunties that want to kiss them and say hello, and they're thinking, why are they not responding? And Yusuf is mainly, he does it the most. You know, they'll say, hey, Assalamu alaikum, Yusuf, hi, Yusuf. And he's looking right through you. And I'm just like, you know, now I laugh it off and I say, you know, he's in his own world. I'm not going to look at it like I'm going to be pressured to make Yusuf do what is culturally correct to do, because he doesn't want to do that. And that's if he doesn't want to do that, then he doesn't have to do that. And so the adult should understand, and I will educate the adult to understand my child. And whether you accept it or you don't, it doesn't bother me, as long as my child is happy and he's not being forced for a kiss or hug and say hello, you know, and that for me is more important. So I'm not afraid of making anybody feel uncomfortable when it comes to my children and their needs. I would rather educate you to understand my children, you know.
Do you know, Kauthar, I think this is why we need to have this conversation on Sisters Hour, because we as adults watching right now, we are the ones whose brains have developed, and we're the ones who understand what life is about, and not these 5-year-olds or these 4-year-olds or the other children that other people have. And I think this is why it's so important. And I thank you so much for coming in. And I thank you for all the viewers who are watching this. And I hope after this conversation that you do share this talk to other friends and family, because I think we need to learn from Kauthar and her boys what they are going through. Because today, subhanallah, I've just learned so much. And I never knew that, you know, I just thought, oh, well, you know, people who are autistic just can't respond or just can't think properly or can't do certain things. But today you've opened up so much more than that. And now I feel like I need to be more cautious when I see these children, because then, like what you said, they're not just hyperactive children, or they're just not naughty children. There's something that's within that environment that they're not used to. And that's how they are communicating it to us, by these screens, by this, you know, whatever that they're doing, because they are in their own little bubble, you know. And we as adults, we need to learn, we need to be more aware. But it's these conversations that we need to keep on having and need to keep on spreading. And again, I hope that this conversation does spread out to others. And, you know, it's such a good point about uncles and aunties and elders. They also need to understand, and they need to accept that this is what's happening right now, because of course it's not just your culture, it's our culture, it's everyone in our society. Shh, don't say it, don't talk about it, or let's talk about it when they're not there, you know. That's just us. And in Islam, it's not, you know. We should be open about this, because, you know, we've learned from stories of the past, difficulties do happen, but we must also remember that it's Allah who provided this for us, Allah who gave it to us, and we must thank Allah for all the good and all the bad. And alhamdulillah, for this particular session, that He brought both of us together to have this conversation, and He brought about all these people, 18 people I'm watching right now, alhamdulillah, but there might be families who'll be watching it later on. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching it with us. My final question is to Kauthar. Every time I bump into you, and might I remind all viewers that Kauthar is this beautiful woman. Not only does she have 2 autistic children, but she has 3 more older children. 5, a mother of 5, and doing all of this, and yet look at that beautiful smile. She always has a beautiful smile, always is positive. Tell us, please tell me, share with me, what is your prayers? What are your daily du'as? What keeps you positive and what keeps you motivated to do this every single day with that big smile?
I think, subhanAllah, honestly, I've had to change my completely frame of thinking. You know, I've looked at it like Allah must really love me and my children, you know, because these are my tests, you know, because Allah tests you with your children. But alhamdulillah, they're a blessing, you know, even when times are difficult. You know, so even the worst day with Yusuf I've got where he doesn't want to put his uniform on or he doesn't want to go to school, even the worst times, I look at it as a positive. And Yunus, for example, the other day, you know, didn't want to put his shoes on. And that was the first time he did that, because usually he just does what I tell him to do. And subhanAllah, even that, I felt excited and I was like, oh my God, look, he's pushing me away. Look, he doesn't want to put his shoes on. And subhanAllah, because I'm looking at it from a different frame of thinking within itself. I'm looking at every single behavior and every single trial and tribulation I have faced with Yusuf and Yunus are my test from Allah. And if something is from Allah, then alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. You know, as difficult it could be. I mean, I'm not always smiles, you know, I have moments where I kind of feel like, okay, I need to take it easy and I need to, you know, or I have emotional times or, you know, but at the same time, your children feed off your behavior. And I've learned to realize that, especially having Yusuf and Yunus. I think my 3 other children, subhanAllah, they were just, you know, easygoing and they kind of did what every typical child does. And raising them was a lot more simpler. And subhanAllah, since having Yusuf, he feeds off my energy. So when I'm upset or when I'm angry, he feeds off that. And he then becomes quite disruptive and his behavior all of a sudden becomes a little bit agitated. I'm like, subhanAllah, what's wrong with him? And so at home, I'm constantly quite happy and, you know, and cheerful because he responds better that way. So something he doesn't want to do and he has a tantrum over it, I'm just like, no, and he easily gets distracted. So I've got this high pitched tone and I'm constant, although I don't feel it deep inside, but I have to be because this is how he responds better. And so I've just learned to keep doing that. And that's helped me. And also daily dhikr, you know, at times of most frustration, I'm like, yes, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, just to kind of take it in. Otherwise, I don't want to be screaming and shouting or why did this happen? Why? So I'm like, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, it's okay, you know, and I kind of take it easy. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayk, and I'm just constantly doing my dhikr. I'm constantly doing that while I'm cooking, while I'm changing the kids, while I'm, you know, whatever I'm faced throughout the day. I found that my daily dhikr kind of takes that away from me being upset, being angry, you know, because anger is from shaitan and I don't want that. And that's not going to be helpful for my children. At the end of the day, they're only going to feed off my positive behavior. And alhamdulillah, if I have the dhikr of Allah and you know, Allah in my tongue, then that's what they're going to feed off. And that's worked.
Oh, mashallah, that's such a great reminder. And thank you for reminding us that, you know, it's true, like what you said, our children mirror us, you know, and they reflect on us. And so, of course, like you said, if you're positive, your child is positive. If you're angry, your child will do exactly the same. They respond back to how they see, and that's what they learn. Subhanallah. You know, it's such a wonderful conversation, and I'm so glad that it's come this far. And so blessed as well that we are in the month of Rajab. So in this holy month, we are doing also at the Sufa Education Foundation talk. So tonight is going to be a second talk by Ustaz Zaki, and do tune in for that at 6 o'clock this evening. But I just wanted to highlight, because one of the lessons that Ustaz Zaki did mention, and I noted this down, and I wanted to share with all of you, it was just a fabulous thing, that there is a hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there are 3 things that Allah will test you with. The first one is your children, whether you have many or none, healthy or not. The second one is your spouse, whether you have a good spouse or a bad spouse. And the third thing is your wealth. Whether you are rich or not, you will still be tested. But there is an answer, a solution to these 3 turbulences and problems and calamities that Allah's given us. And the three solutions to them is salah. Make sure you do your salah. Saum, make sure you fast. And then we have obviously the optional fast of Mondays and Thursdays. And the third thing is to give sadaqah. So I hope that from these lessons that we've learned from Ustaz Zaki's lessons, and if you're interested, do tune into these programs. But I just wanted to say thank you again for the amazing tips and advice that Sister Kauthar you've given us today. You know, you've brought up this incredible topic, and we're so ever so grateful for it. And you know, I'm going to read some comments along. Just hold on with me. Let me just get this by. We've got lots of hearts flying up and down. We've got lots of people saying salams. They are watching all the way from Malaysia, Brunei, from the other side of the world. Thank you so much, viewers, all of you coming in. And we also have people from Brunei, subhanAllah. We have Sister Amira who says exactly the same with my son, how he responds what you said earlier on. We have a sister whose name goes by Hijabi Kitty. Did any of your children had speech delay, which we did speak about? Did any of them have occupational therapy, which we did mention? And if they did, how beneficial was it, Sister Kauthar?
Occupational therapist has definitely been beneficial, subhanAllah, because like I said, I didn't know about, you know, with Yunus and his sensory delay. And also Yunus's diet is limited, so he only has one meal. He has his breakfast, but he also has one main meal a day. And so that's how OT is kind of slowly helping in terms of him holding a spoon and stuff like that, you know, because he's very much, his chronicle age is not the same as his actual age. So he acts sometimes of a child of 8 months up until 20 months, but he's 4. You know, so it's like OT has taught me to understand this and kind of, you know, has different activities with Yunus. So at the moment, obviously, we're doing them at home. So different foods in the room and see how he reacts to it. So stuff like that. I mean, this is because of Yunus's individual needs and his, that's how it's helped him, alhamdulillah. Whereas Yusuf has never needed occupational therapy. So again, every child is different and how they need it. But I have found it beneficial, alhamdulillah. I'm gaining more knowledge about Yunus and his sensory delay.
Thank you for that. Sister Sarah No says, thank you for being so honest with your experience, especially your concerns and your pace. Lots of hearts there. She also says, our child feeds off from our energy. So that's a very good reminder. And everyone says, Jazakallah khairan for this. And Sister Rizlan says, you are so amazing. Thank you for your advice. And we want to say thank you for all the viewers who are watching us today. Thank you for your wonderful comments. Thank you, Sister Kauthar, for coming in. It's been so lovely. It's been a learning journey for all of us. I definitely have to say, for myself especially. And it's just an ongoing conversation that we should continue to have as adults, and for us to learn so that we can better understand different families and different children and what they're like, and not to judge. And also remember that whenever you see something that you think is not right in your head, instead of saying something or commenting that is a little bit hurtful, better to make a dua. Make a lovely dua for that family, make a dua for that child, and inshallah, we'll be much better people, inshallah. So thank you ever so much again for all of you for tuning in. And like I said, for the month of Rajab, we will be doing in more programs. Do tune in and check out our Sofa Mosque London Facebook page. Thank you again, Sister Kauthar. Before I end, is there anything you would like to say?
I would like to say thank you, you know, for me to be able to express how, you know, the awareness of autism in my own children, even if it meant I'm giving an example of my own children, but just for the parents out there who haven't heard of autism or don't know about autism, but yet they suspect their child. If I've helped anybody, then that was, you know, that was my main purpose. And yeah, thank you. This has definitely been an experience, a good experience, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Sister Kauthar. Inshallah, we'll see you all again, lovely viewers, next week when we will have another great episode on Sisters Hour. Thank you so much. Stay safe and keep us in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.